Welcome to the Best Music Podcast, where we see behind the curtain and discover the hidden habits and success secrets of noteworthy music makers. I'm your host, Dan Spencer, and this week's featured guest is Tom Brechtlein. When Tom Brechtlein was 18 years old, he saw Chick Corea and Returned Forever on PBS Television. In that moment, he remembers thinking, I'm going to play with this guy someday. 2 years later, at the age of 20, Tom auditioned for Chick Corea and got the gig. He performed and recorded with Chick until 1983. Their musical relationship continued off and on throughout the years, and as recently as 2016, with 15 tours and 5 recordings. Other artists Tom has toured and recorded with are Manhattan Transfer, Wayne Shorter, Meola, Joe Farrell, John-Luc Ponty, Robben Ford and the Blue Line, Rickie Lee Jones, Kenny Loggins, Christopher Cross, and Eric Johnson. Tom is available for recording projects and for teaching. You can find out more at Instagram.com/Tom Brechtlein and YouTube.com Tom Brechtlein. Links for both of those are going to be in the video description if you're on YouTube and in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. Tom, you have been an incredible collaborator with some just absolutely tremendous artists. Obviously, you're a tremendous artist in and of your own right. What do you think your number one piece of advice for people would be around being the ultimate collaborator?
Get paid. Okay. Say the question again one more time. Keep that one in. This is good comedy.
That was great. It was great. I love it. Because I was like totally deadpan, ready to like nod and be like, "Ooh, yes, yeah. Receiving the deep and ancient wisdom."
Right. It would be, give what's needed and wanted for the person who's hiring you, if that's what you mean by collaborator. Or,
yeah.
And be open to, sometimes the person you're working for wants a specific thing. You should give that and more. That's what I try and do, But also, if there's a window for input of some sort, you give it, but you give it, it's like I'm talking to you right now. Not like, I want you to play a polka on the bridge here. And you say, what are you, out of your mind? No. I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, well, let's try the polka thing. And maybe I'll put my spin on it and they'll go, I had an idea for a polka, but that's great the way you're playing the polka on the bridge. Even though it's non sequitur to the tune, But no, I don't do that because I have been proven wrong many times. Like this one project I did, and it was Steve Hunt was producing it, and it's great. Steve is great. He's out of Boston. He teaches at Berkeley. Great keyboard player. He's been with the likes of Alan Holdsworth. Plays with Billy Cobham. Incredible musician. I did a recording for him remotely here, but also we did this. He called me for this project for Kingsley Durant, who's in Kentucky, who has an album out now called Convertible. And myself, Roscoe Beck's on it, and Steve is playing keyboards. Kingsley's playing guitar. It came out really nice, And I remember there was this one tune. I knew I was getting like what would be called the choruses of this one tune, but I wasn't getting the A sections. It wasn't. I tried different grooves, and then Steve starts going, and I respect him. He starts singing these beats over the phone, going, "Okay." And then I said, and then he wrote 2 rhythmic patterns, or 3. And I remember I was disagreeing with him. I said, no, man, I don't hear that, And so it was late at night and I had been done for the day. And so he sent me these patterns, for the verses, if you will, And I couldn't stay out of the studio. I went, I got to try this. Because I'm not hearing it. So I go in there, and for some reason I got the concept of them, and I mixed the three together within the A sections of the tune. And he was talking to Kingsley. We're coming up with something, with the verses. And by the time he got off the phone, I had the whole thing recorded. I said, I got it. Check it out. He went, oh my God, that's perfect. So collaboration is a really good thing. We're good. I wasn't going to leave the collaborating part where viewers would say, well, what about the collaborating? You're talking about just getting hired, It's like, so that's where the collaboration comes in. And then I said to Steve, I said, man, I'm sorry for any pushback I gave you on that, man. It's like, because that was perfect. And then, you make it your own. The bottom line is when you're playing that kind of a thing and somebody asks you to play something, it's okay. But I mean, you have the right to say, I don't know about that. But I always go, I don't know about that. And I go like, and then I try it and I go, wow, that works, So you can save yourself a lot of argument by trying first am I answering your question, by the way? I tend to
You are. This is great. This is awesome. Keep going. This is great.
Is try that idea that they want first before you totally dismiss it. I know, I've been there many times, even back in the day when we were actually in the studios together, 4 guys in the studio together. And, there's still that, of course, or 5 people, in the studio, or a whole orchestra or whatever. You go with what the producer, the artist wants first. That's the main thing. Otherwise, it's going to be like this, and 2 hours go by, and 3 hours go by, and then finally, when you acquiesce, you go like, okay, and then you're sitting there going, why did I do that in the first place? It works the other way around too, but mostly, when somebody's hiring you and you give your input, there's another one that actually worked in my favor. Let's see. I was doing this project for Kenny Loggins. This was not a cyber project like here. It was at the studio called Brethren in, I think it was in Ojai. I'm not sure. And Peter Asher was producing. I don't know if you know who Peter Asher is. He's a great producer. And he was also, back in the day of the British invasion, he was the Peter of Peter and Gordon. Look up Peter and Gordon. I won't live in a world without love. But Peter Asher, he's a great producer, and he's really fun to work with. Anyway, so, I had heard the demos, and I already had a beat coming up in this one tune, and it was for this project called Blue Sky Riders. And I already had this beat figured out for the for the whole tune. And they're discussing this and discussing it, and I just said, okay, I'll open my mouth, because I didn't know Peter that well, but I went, okay, they seem to be in a confusion here, so I just put my 2 cents in, and I said, I can't remember what the beat was, but I said, what about this? And I played this, and they all went, that's great, let's do that. And in my head, I went, really? It was like, but you don't do that. You go, okay, great, we did that. And in 2 takes, we had the song, and it was great. And Nathaniel Kunkel was engineering, who was a great engineer. I don't know if you know who Russ Kunkel is. He's an incredible drummer. Played with Jackson Browne, Stevie Nicks. He's James Taylor. He was in the thing called The Section with Danny Korchmar and Lee Sklar, and quite, he's one of my heroes, if you hear Fire and Rain, that's Russ. Amongst others, the millions of tracks he's been on, So where was I at? Oh yeah. So Nathaniel, his son, amazing with the analog aspects and the digital aspects of recording, really, really fantastic. It was a great experience because at that time, I was just used to, you hire me, I come in, hear the drums, mic them up. Let's get drum sounds. That's the way you do it, And then they go, okay, we're ready to go. Let's go over the tune. Boom, boom, boom. Well, it was funny. We listened to the playback of that very tune. And Kenny was listening to the playback, and he said, you played a different thing on the bass drum that you did in the first half of the song. I said, okay, well, we'll punch it in. Before we could discuss it, Nathaniel had that bass drum beat in the out verse. And I said, wow, Nathaniel, make me sound good, that was the first time I realized this was, oh gosh, when was it? Might have been 2012 or 2010 or something like that. Maybe even earlier than that. But it was great. I'm going, wow, you can do that? Holy smokes. Anyway, that's just a little thing. So those are the two ways that collaboration can work, if I'm using the right definition of collaboration,
I think so, for sure. You said something interesting in the very first part of your answer. You said, sometimes what the artist wants and sometimes what it needs.
I said that. Okay, great. I'll write that down.
So with the part of what it needs, listening to music is one thing, right? Because you can develop a sense of what works.
Right.
But what would you say would be a step besides listening to tons of records for someone to start to understand from this almost arrangement producing, like you're a mini producer on your instrument perspective, what a song needs?
Sure. Well, that's, you learn by doing. It's like when I was growing up, I listened to a ton of records. I took my sister's stereo from upstairs and put it in the living room, set up the drums, and played along with the records. Cops never came, luckily. There were tons of garage bands on the street at the time. And then you start jamming with people. You go over to houses and you start jamming with people. And you play those songs. The Allman Brothers. Yes. The Beatles. And then you go over into Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and then the Temptations too, and then you learn by that, Tower of Power, James Brown, and you might play it badly, but anything that Bernard Purdy's on, Aretha Franklin, all that stuff was around at the time, and it was all on the radio. AM radio. And FM was another thing. FM was it was like pirate radio. So you got to hear all the really cool groups, like the Chambers Brothers, and the new Sly and the Family stuff. Sly was on the Sly, yeah, we know each other personally, but he was on the AM radio. That was some of the hippest stuff on AM radio, But then you have the one with Andy Newmark on it. Every one of Sly Stone's records is great, but this one, it's got some great stuff on it. Anyway, you start jamming with these bands, and then one day somebody says, "Hey, I got a song, and I got a cassette player that records, and we're going to tape ourselves," as well as when you have a band, you had a band, and you record the covers that you did too, but then you say, well, I got this song, and that's where it starts. And then eventually you start playing gigs with people. I'm just saying, because there'd be a lot of people say, well, that's easy for you to say, blah, 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 whatever. But the fact is you play with people. You play with all kinds of people. Hey, you want to jam? Yeah, Yeah, I'm there. You know, in the beginning, say, hey, I got a gig. I got a wedding. I got a bar mitzvah. I got a top 40 gig. I got a thing, you know, it doesn't, you know, yeah, let's go, you know, and then all the things involved, rehearsing and whatnot, you know, and then all of a sudden, then you get that first thing where, hey, I want to record some stuff, you know, and then you and then you hear the playback. You get used to hearing yourself on the tune, and you can tell if you have any kind of, you don't have to be an incredible music genius to see that, to hear if something doesn't work. If something goes against, you just got to be honest about it, so to speak. You can't go like, you can't start fitting a square peg in a round hole, you know, going, oh yeah, that really worked. You know, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, I think it works. Does it work for you? You know, it's like, no, you know if it doesn't work or not, you know? And it's like, so they go, let's do another take. And then you fix it. You know, I mean, it's that, yes, folks, it's that simple. Julian fries in seconds, you know, and look at these bright red tomatoes, you know. But but that's the way it happens, you know. I mean, and then you sometimes when you're in the studio or you're beating a dead horse, usually the producer, if he's smart enough, will say, "Oh, let's move on to something else and, you know, get a fresh look on it." That's also, well, see, today that's also the beauty of having this, because you can. What I do is when I first get a tune, I do a pass, and I know it's not going to be. I mean, sometimes I get lucky, you know, and get it in the first pass. Or if I hear a song, I say, okay, what's going to work with this? And I kind of do the A section. And I said, okay, that works. And then I don't know what the B section is going to be, so I do that. And then what I do is I punch in together, and then once I go, okay, that works, then I'll do a take. Because I can hear it, you know?
Yes.
And usually I'm pretty close, you know? And sometimes, you know, I'd say it's 50-50. I'll get one, I'll go, yeah, aren't I proud of myself, you know? You know, I think I'll have a cup of tea in the kitchen, get out of the studio, you know, and a cookie. You know?
Tea and a cookie, a good reward.
Yeah.
Speaking of rewards, Tom, I have kind of a selfish question to ask. This is less high level for everyone out there. This is very tactical, down in the weeds rhythm question for you.
Sure.
I'm doing some research into shuffle, and specifically, and specifically into like Texas shuffle, and the whole sort of thing of like a lot of times you'll see charts in 12/8. Right? A lot of times you'll see shuffle charts written in 12/8, but really technically speaking, shuffle should be in 4/4, right? With the triplet figures. Can you talk a little bit about sort of your feeling and your view on shuffle, and you know, just what are your thoughts on shuffle?
I love them. I used to hate them because I couldn't play them. When I was a kid, but I actually could play them because I studied out of this book, Advanced Techniques for the Modern Drummer. You know, and at the time, you know, being 15, 14, I go, okay, I knew the shuffle like a rock shuffle, you know. But actually, the exercises that were in that book were actually shuffles, and then when you get to high school, you get to the big band, and then you might do some Thad Jones, Mel Lewis arrangements. I mean, tunes. And Mel Lewis played a great shuffle. And then what happened to me was when I got on Robben Ford's band, it was Roscoe Beck that got me on Robben Ford's band. I had we had met. I was doing some recordings for Jennifer Warrens, and she's a great singer. You should check her out if you don't know about her. You know, Love Lift Us Up with Joe Cocker. Love Lift Us Up where we belong.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, well, she's the girl voice on that, and I've had the time of my life, Dirty Dancing. But prior to that, she has quite the recording career, and I was on the road with her too. I'd never heard besides Patty Austin and Natalie Koloff, who I both have worked with, the pitch and the intonation, like rolling off a log, not even trying. Unbelievable musicians, those three. And I'm sure, of course, there's Aretha Franklin, but I'm talking about the ones that I have had the pleasure of working with, And so anyway, the shuffle.
Have you ever seen I'm sorry to interrupt you, but have you ever seen a shuffle chart in 12/8? Because I've seen a couple of them.
No, I never have, actually.
Really? Never?
No. Nope.
Well, I guess you're playing with significantly higher caliber people.
Oh, flash marks, and it says shuffle. What kind of shuffle do you want? It'll say rock shuffle.
Oh, yeah.
Or blues, or just say shuffle, and then I just say, what kind of shuffle? Oh, it's a blues shuffle. Oh, okay. It's, chew tobacco. I just, what happened was Roscoe, well, that's another story. That's a whole other story. But, briefly, I had subbed for Tommy Taylor and Christopher Cross. I'll make it brief. I'm going to get to the shuffle. And because Tommy Taylor got sick or something. So I went and I played with the original band that was on the record and all that stuff. So I played there. And then also Roscoe had met me from the Jennifer Warren's things. And then we played with the Universal Amphitheater because Chris had told Roscoe about me. And so Roscoe came down and I met Roscoe briefly. And it was great. So then, I don't know why I'm telling you all this, probably because I had my first cup of coffee just right before this. But it was just sort of like, from there, Chris's tour manager, because we got off the road, he called me up, James Wofford, he was Chris's tour manager at the time, called me up and said, could you help out a friend of mine? And I said, sure, what's your friend's name? He goes, Eric Johnson. I said, oh, and what does he play? Well, this is before Tones, before he got his record deal.
Yeah.
And he says, well, he plays guitar. So I went down there and we had a jam session and Roscoe was there. And we had a great time. And so Roscoe goes, well, we got this gig. I'm getting to the point with the shuffles, okay?
Yeah.
Hang with me.
I'm hanging.
So, yeah. So he says, I play with Robben Ford, and usually Vinnie Colaiuta plays with us. We have this gig when he's always in town at this place called my place in Santa Monica. But if if he can't do it, would you be into doing it? I said, sure, of course, And then a couple of days later, Roscoe had recommended me for a session for Kazu Matsui, the shakuhatsu player. A project that he was working on. And we met there, and Robben was on the thing along with Roscoe. So the same thing happened after we had played together. Robben comes up to me and says the same thing that Roscoe told me. So I said, sure, I'd love to. So the next week, there was a gig, and I was playing on the gig. So, I think it was Take Out Some Insurance, the tune, I forget. But I remember we played all the stuff from the Talk to Your Daughter record, which wasn't released yet. And, there was some shuffles there, but, whatever, So the last tune, I believe it was Take Out Some Insurance. And Roscoe turns to me and goes, Texas Double Shuffle. And in my mind, I'm going, what the beep is he talking about, So this is where you learn on the job. I've already been a seasoned pro, and I just kind of went like, if you will, seasoned pro. But, and I went, oh, he's probably talking about that double shuffle Mel Lewis thing, So all of a sudden I started going like that, just make it swing and listen to Robben's comp. See, this is where these are these are context clues.
Sure, yeah.
In elementary school, you learn well, you have context clues to where you're going. Well, this is what they were. Robben's going, "Gee, could you just take out some and shoot?" Whatever. And I'm listening to him, and I'm doing the chew tobacco, and Roscoe's going right down the pike. And so I'm doing that, and then Roscoe turns around and he goes, and I'm going, yeah, gotcha. So, I mean, that's how the whole thing started with that, Plus, I used to go see Steve Gadd play with Stuff when that group first started. And I used to go to the Bottom Line. I'm from Long Island, New York. And so I used to drive into the city and get tickets for 2 shows. I'd save my money up and tickets for 2 shows and stay in the same place, center, front row. Always, just tables were like this, and I could see Richard T. I could see Chris Parker, and right through Richard's T piano, I could see Steve Gadd, and Gordon Edwards would sit in the front playing, and then Cornell Dupree would be over there, and of course Eric Gale would be standing up over here. That was great. So they used to do shuffles, but so Steve would do his Steve Gadd shuffle, which would be with the hi-hat. I'd have to show it to you sometime. Anyway. It's a great shuffle. So anyway, I'd emulate that too. This is before I went to Los Angeles. So the combination of those 2 things hit it with Robben and Roscoe, and then we started doing little road trips. So and then what we would then Roscoe had all these collections, all this great stuff, And he'd pop it when we were driving in a van. He'd pop in those things. And Robben, of course, I mean, these guys were blues encyclopedias.
Yeah.
And then I'd listen to all this stuff, and you just listen. That's all you do. I could be quiet and listen. You wouldn't know it by this interview, but I'd just be listening, man, and I'd go, yeah, okay, that's cool. And, from playing jazz, I knew how to, well, at least I think I know how to swing. It's just everything's got a swing to it. So from there, I would just adjust, and that's where learn by doing comes in. I think the best way is you play with people that know the stuff better than you do, and kind of hold on for dear life. I mean, really, that sounds funny, but really, when you think about it, because you're on stage, you got to do it. There's no, you either do it or you don't. And sometimes you don't, and that's okay. But you could be sure as hell the next time you do it again that you're gonna know how to do it. So yeah, there's 12/8. To explain what if the guy was silly enough not to write shuffle on the top, I could see where they go 12/8. I go, oh, this is a shuffle.
Yeah.
Or if they want to go back,
right,
or something like that.
Thinking about the second division of each beat unit, right?
Yeah. Or a slow blues, 12/8. Ding, 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 back.
Okay.
Because it's 4.
Right, but Tom, how are we going to say? Okay, well, are we then saying that essentially we're going to think based on tempo that the time signature is going to change because the feeling so radically changes? Yeah. You think so?
Well, the same thing in jazz. You don't do 12/8 for jazz, for swing.
No, it's always 4/4.
So that's the concept you use because it swings.
Sure.
Isn't blues the forerunner of jazz?
Yeah, so they tell me.
I don't know. I'm sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it is, but somebody will probably go. Somebody on the internet. No, you're absolutely wrong. How could you even think about that? Well, you're sitting behind the screen. That's what. Oh.
Yeah. So
I love how brave these people that they get negative on you. The safeness of hiding behind a screen.
It's very true. It's very true.
It's like come on, you know?
Yeah. But, you know, I always honestly, I have a moment of empathy and I pray for those people because if you're living a life where you're in so much pain that you want to take time out of your day to instead of go build something yourself, but instead go try and tear something down someone else has built, it's like, I'm so sorry that whatever's going on in your life is going on in your life.
Yeah, right. That's a good way to look at it, you know? But the thing is, like, you don't have to say it in the first place.
No, you don't.
Actually, why don't you invite somebody to dinner or lunch and talk to them live about it? I hate
what a concept.
He's the worst. You know?
What a concept. But just to tie the ball on this 12/8 shuffle thing, like I've definitely heard people say a 12/8 slow blues. Like
slow blues. Yeah. Or some people do it in 6/8. You know, I don't know why they do it in 6/8. Because how do you count 12/8?
Well, yeah, sure. It's 2 6/8s back to back, sure.
Right, but how do you count it?
Well, for me
one
personally,
of the ways you can count it besides 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh no, I would do 1T dot 2T dot 3T dot 4T dot because that way
1, 2,
sure.
3,
yeah.
4.
Right, because 4 beat units.
Well, however you want to count it.
Yeah.
But and then you just there it is.
So, Tom, is your message to stop thinking about the time signature so much and to just play the darn thing?
Yes, sir. The chart is just saying, play this, stupid. I'm kidding. No, so it's a map. And, I mean, how many people have said that before? It's a map. So you know you're going to, and there's maybe like a hit here, a hit there, and it's a map. And then the charts are good because you memorize it quicker. Hopefully, you memorize the whole thing quicker, rather than have to play it over and over again.
And then sometimes you don't need to memorize it at all.
Yeah. You're just like a super cool reader.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard of those people. I've met a couple of them.
Right. But yeah, so I mean, that's what I would say. Chart's very valuable. I remember one time I had one of those posts when I was advertising on Facebook. And I guess they saw me reading. It was a bass player. I can't remember his name, so he will remain nameless. You wouldn't know him. I wouldn't know him either. I never met him. But it was like, I don't like drummers who read because they don't know the tune long enough, blah, 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 blah. And I went, okay, so then I usually don't answer comments because you go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, there's no winning.
So I put up one of Steve Gadd, one of Bernard Purdy, of both of them reading something and playing the crap out of it. And I guess there were a couple of others too, and I just went like that. I just did that. And I didn't say anything. No response back, but there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, Rick Barada, to name a few. I mean, so there you go.
Tom, how do you define success in your music career?
It's an ongoing thing. You're responsible for your own success, I think. Because you let people know you're there. You let people know that you have a service to provide. And it sounds kind of cut and dry, but there are variables. And bottom line is when you finally get hired, you've got to deliver. And you should deliver more than what's needed and wanted. You know what I mean? And it's an ongoing thing. And you're dealing with people, most of the time I've had successes with that. Some of the times, I think I work well with people. Some people, there's some stories.
I'm sure there are, and I want to.
But not a lot. It's there, and there are two sides to every story.
There are.
Yeah. So, um, but my record's pretty good. I think you know.
Well,
But
let me.
it's a constant thing, you know, and some people still won't know you too. So,
Sure. Perhaps I should redefine the question. How do you internally define success for yourself? Like, what makes you feel really satisfied, and what feels like success for you?
well, getting the job done.
Uh,
There's a lot of, you know, and feeling good about what I've done. I go, man, that sounds good. Like, I don't know if you know who George Whitty is. We have a group called Third Rail. And I mean, we haven't played in a while, long time. But I've known George for a long time. He's played with the Brecker Brothers. He's worked with Dave Sanborn. He's worked with Herbie Hancock. He's the producer, arranger. Shaka Khan he's worked with as far as, I think, is producing and arranging. He's also has a tune on the Michael Brecker record, Time is of the Essence. And I think that we did it with our group. I think it's called Do a Little Dance. And his tune, I think he produced that record, you know, and Pat Metheny's on it. And, you know, so he's amazing. He's also a very good friend. And he shoots me a lot of projects. And this one project that he played keyboard bass on, but it sounds like a real, I mean, it's pretty incredible. I remember I said, who's the bass player on this? He goes, oh, he just made a joke about it. I realized it was him. And I remember after recording it, I said, oh, they gotta like this. This is great. You know, and they gotta like this. This is like it's right there. They gotta like, and sure enough, they liked it, you know. So then I did another one too, for another person he's producing. And in the middle, it has 3 different tempos, but the middle section has the salsa section. So rather than ruin it, I let space for the percussion player. But I was playing, man, and you know the A section. They had me change the A section. But what I had done, I said, oh well, I'll try this. I don't know if it's gonna work, but you know it's salsa. But you know it's like, and when I heard the playback, I went. I have to say, I kind of went, woo, okay, that's great. I hope they like that, you know. I'm going to leave that in there, and I have, you know, really cool front and back, you know. And they said, we like everything you did from the salsa section to the end, but we'd like something like on brushes, kind of a Paul Motion thing in the front. But he said, send the stems anyway, because you're going to have Steve Thornton put percussion on it. And I said, well, I think they like the front end, and that's really cool. But what I was really happy about is they loved the salsa section. You know, I was like, yes, I faked him again. Anyway, but that's kind of for what me is success, you know. And, you know, he's going like, wow, did a great job. And they really dug it, you know, and it was great. And then, or people, they take your number. They don't know who you are. You know, which I think is really cool. And they take your number. Man, I really like the way you play. You know, maybe you could. That happened recently. I just did this gig, and also they're young fellas. So it's great. Now I can say I used to be the youngest in the band. Now I'm always pretty much the oldest in the band with a few, you know, a few things. But that kind of thing is the local thing, or you get called for because they want you to play with them. You know, and it's nice. It's like a friendship. I mean, if, you know, and I like that kind of thing, you know. And, you know, and getting paid doesn't hurt either. But that comes after all that other stuff, you know, because you've done a good job and they like what you do, and they can, you know, it's, I guess it's, you know, they have a confidence in you that you'll do it, you know, or if you don't get it first, that you will get it. So that to me is kind of success, you know. I'm easy, man, you know. It's like, I mean, the old cliche. I've been very fortunate. I got got a great wife. I got a great family. And that puts up with all this insanity. And that's great. And yeah. So that's pretty much success, getting the message over, or even if somebody gets what you were trying to do. That old thing, somebody comes up to you after a gig and goes, I really liked what you were trying to do. Gee, thanks.
Yeah. I had that once. I was playing this small bar guitar and singing, and
Right.
I shred this little like bluesy thing, like guitar boogie style solo. This guy
Right.
comes up in the set break. He's like, that one solo was okay. You should do more like that. And I was like,
Oh, I've heard them all. I remember I played, I'll give you one, that'll make it. I was playing with, I think it was with Meola. No. Oh, it was one of those things, I think I had a solo. Maybe it was with, it could have been with Chick Corea. But anyway, this guy comes up to me. Oh, no. Yeah. He said, no, it was with Meola. Played the second set, and this guy comes up to me after the gig. He goes, were you tired in that second set? And I looked at him and I went, this is how I did it. I went, no. Like that, Or, oh, there's a million of them. How come you didn't use that snare drum and the da-da-da? How come you, and up until, and I remember it got to where we were in the men's room and I'm in the urinal. And the guy says to me, how come blah, 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 blah? And I looked at him, I said, are you keeping a scorecard, man? Oh, I got tons of them, man. It's just great. Let's say another urinal story is like, there was one time we were playing with the Blue Line, Robben Ford and the Blue Line. We were playing in Long Beach, a place called Humphreys. And Robben was having a problem. I guess there was a line, some kind of line from the amp to whatever, and it delayed the show. So I went to the bathroom and I'm urinal, and the guy comes up, the guy's in the urinal next to me, goes, guys are running a little late, aren't you? I said, yeah, there's some technical problems, And then he mutters under his breath, he goes, well, you get what you pay for. And I looked at him, still in the urinal, and go, hey, well, wait a minute, I'm not finished yet. My story gets better. I said, did you come here the last time we played? He goes, yeah. And he goes, did you like it? He goes, oh, I loved it. And I said, well, then what are you complaining about? Flush. And I walked away, I said, come on, I mean, stuff like that, but that's not everybody. That's just a few. Those are the ones that stand out in my mind. So do not be discouraged because you know what they say about opinions. Do you ever know that adage? Opinions are like...
They're like social security numbers. Everyone's got one.
Yeah, but it's like, that's why I don't read the comments on YouTube. Well, my wife tells me, don't read the comments. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of like, I'm giving you more than you bargained for, aren't I?
People just putting their little donkey hooves everywhere, all over YouTube.
Dig it, Yeah. It's like,
everywhere.
So, it's like, it's music. Have a good time. Or people who read the set list. I remember I go out and check my drums to make sure and see the guy reading the set list. And I said, you're the kind of guy who buys a novel and reads the liner notes before you read the book. You want to know the end. I said, you're spoiling it for yourself.
Oh, gosh.
People. No,
People.
No, people are great. There's just some people. Oh, God.
Well, Tom, Those are all my questions for you today. And I do want to say thank you so much for being so very generous with your time. I asked you for about 20 to 40 minutes. You're well past the mark here. So thank you so, so much.
Okay. You're welcome.
For coming to hang today.
Thanks for having me,
This was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Ladies
Tell
and gentlemen.
your friends. I got a studio here.
Indeed. You can check out Tom on Instagram and YouTube. That's Tom Brechtlein. And also on YouTube, Tom Brechtlein. Links to those are going to be in the video description if you're on YouTube and in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast. Tom, thank you so very much for your time today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.